I'm on a research trip. Actually, the intention is really to learn more, to be inspired more by what I see, what I talk to, people who I talk to, artists I visit, and especially the city also, well, in the particular context of Christchurch, what I see here, what I learn here, and I guess really the first one I would say I would like to give this talk as a kind of homage to the people living here, fighting against the disaster, especially the art community, doing everything possible to continue to exist, to continue to develop, and also come up with incredibly inventive solutions to the problem. I think this is extremely beautiful, and I was very much moved. So I have to say, the fact that I'm supposed to talk about a few projects, I guess a lot of these projects will seem pretty weak in front of this power that you expressed through this wonderful actions for the last year. So I really hope that the Auckland Triennial can connect itself to the city here, to the art community, to the citizens here, really to come up with some interesting visions for an even better future after this drama. So I really think my talk is only a kind of, number one, I guess, a kind of little introduction to my practice. And the second thing is really to somehow create a topic for your comments, your critique, and also really I'm trying to be really I guess using this as a way to attract more inventive ideas. So today I'm going to talk about as you see there's a little title for the talk. It's called Exhibition Making Spaces. For me, making exhibitions in contemporary art is actually somehow I have to repeat the same introduction as I did yesterday in Wellington. I did the talk similar to this, but today I decided to actually move a little bit further, because yesterday I only talked about one project, and today I'm going to talk about maybe 3 or 4 projects that are really related to my practice and also my understanding of what an exhibition in the context of contemporary creation signifies. I guess an exhibition is not simply a display of existing objects or existing artworks. Well, the artistic practice itself has been changing so much for the last half a century, I would say, especially since the time that artists decided to step out of their studios, going to embrace a site-specific kind of a context, come up with responses to those specific places. And our understanding, our definition of contemporary art has been really changing immensely. So as a curator, as the exhibition, and also as somehow institutions like galleries, museums, how they can respond to this new opening, I think is really essential. So for me, exhibition is not simply a display or a representation of existing artworks, objects. It's actually, for me, a kind of articulation moment in the long process of artistic production. It would be somehow, a kind of enlarged kind of context for individual artists to be engaged and to produce something that they usually don't do in the studios, in the kind of preparation kind of a context, but really come up with new productions that can actually open up new perspectives, new possibilities. And then this goes on. So an exhibition is not simply kind of once for all kind of events, but much more about a kind of a continuation of engagement with this new challenge. And on the other hand, also as an exhibition, I guess it's also a moment that artists put themselves in confrontation, in dialogue with the public. Therefore, it's an opportunity to produce new spatial relationship with the place and also a new social relationship. Therefore, I think it's also a process of forming new communities and to influence the change of the place where the exhibition happens or the institution is located. So it's kind of ongoing process that brings us to rethink the society in which we are living. And so at the end, it's about how continuously to reimagine the notion of the place or location. And this is extremely important in the sense that we are living in a time that somehow being defined largely by globalization. And globalization is not one model being spread out all around the world, one kind of model of economic or social, political, cultural production, but really about a living process of conflict, contradiction, and negotiation among different elements from different localities. And it's in this process that actually in this confrontation and negotiation that we are continuously to see how new localities are being produced out of the origin of the places in exchange with the other. So this process actually gives us a new challenge in terms of artistic production as well, in terms of exhibition making. This sounds extremely abstract, but I would like to actually present a few projects I have been curating for the last few years. I have been involved with, for the last almost 20 years, I think, more or less 20-25 events that can be qualified as biennials or triennials or major art festival and so on. And they happen all around the world, from South Africa to China to Latin America to Europe to America and so on. And every time doing a project like this for me is a new challenge. The main challenge is how it's somehow to rethink the momentum of that event. And we know that history has been changing very rapidly since the end of the Cold War, and since the rise of discussions on the post-colonial globalization, and today we're talking about a lot on the tension between capitalism and social goods. And the tension between private and public, the tension between how to redefine a better future and the reality which is full of contradiction, conflicts, even wars, and so on. So every time when an event happens in one place, in one particular moment, for me, it's an opportunity to rethink what we're doing as people involved with artistic production, specifically about how to redefine an exhibition as a terrain, as a space in which these questions can be rediscussed. I think related to the question of biennial or triennial kind of event, very much it's about the position of artistic production in public space. How actually artistic production can somehow influenced our understanding of the evolution of the notion of public space and its productive kind of force influencing how we define our private space, how we define our social relationship. And one of the most exciting kind of event I was able to be engaged was in 2007 in Luxembourg. And maybe some of you might know that in Luxembourg, in Europe, for the last 20 years or so, the European community, as a part of the cultural agenda, the construction of European community, they decided to have cultural capital events in different cities every year. So typically, it's every year you have a Western European city and an Eastern European city named as cultural capital, and using that as a way to create not only festivals of art and opening museums and so on, and also really to help the local community to rethink the role of culture in the making of their urban future. So in 2007, Luxembourg was identified, or how to say, nominated as the cultural capital of European cultural capital. So there are many events happening. I was invited to curate 2 events. One is a large exhibition about how multicultural interventions have been changing our vision of the city. It's called Global Multitude. That's an exhibition of 8 artists in the largest space. I don't have the images here, I'm not going to talk about that. But more importantly, I was actually curating this project, which is called the Transcend City. That is basically a public art project with kind of relatively permanent projects for urban spaces. So I have been always kind of interested in the question of how contemporary art creation can be a kind of action to temporarily occupy urban spaces and transform them into, I always quote Harkin Bay's idea of temporary autonomous zones. Basically, it's really because of the intervention of artistic events, we would be able to take over one space or many spaces in the city and then do things which are not usually happening in that place. To claim a certain kind of intellectual, cultural, political, and personal autonomy through, very often that would be things that are totally different from the expectation of general public, especially expectation of political authorities and expectation of funders. And very often it's about how to use the opportunity to create and condition to have artists' voice be heard, and also to create a particular dialogue with the public, so the public can discover that they can have a totally different point of view about life because they encounter this artist, encounter this work, and so on. So unfortunately, I don't have the map of the city here, but very quickly, I went to do research about the city of Luxembourg and find out this is an incredibly interesting place. I guess many of you would know where Luxembourg is situated. It's a tiny city-state, basically, but it's not really a state. It's a how to say, dukey, with a duke on the top and a few, you know, territory, with a city in the center, and this city is it's situated between Germany, France, Belgium, and so it's a kind of permanent zone of transition. And what is interesting is also because of its historical reasons, because of geographic position, Luxembourg is the center of European finance. So major banks have their headquarters, major financial institutions are situated there. And during the daytime, the city of Luxembourg has more than 1 million people, and during the evening, there are less than 200,000. So you can see 80% of the population will commute between, traveling between borders. And that makes the city extremely elastic, extremely open to unexpected things. So I thought the best title to call the situation is called a transient city. In the meantime, I also find out after research, apart from those kind of upper class, middle upper class living in the center, there's a lot of suburban areas around the city where you have a large population of immigration workers who are doing dirty jobs, basically, from cleaning toilets to building highways. These people are from South America, Portugal, Northern Africa, and Asia, and so on. And these people are largely ignored in the political and social map of that city. So I was thinking how to create an event that, on the one hand, can provide people a totally different point of view in terms of urban and physical form. On the other hand, to create a new connection, a new map where different communities can become connected to each other and become visible. So basically I defined this project into 3 parts. The first one is called Urban Landmarks. The second one is called Community Life. You can see very quickly. Sorry, it will come back. And then behind that, I wanted to create a kind of semi-permanent institution of research. It's like the brain of this project, because this is so-called urban public art project doesn't really have the ambition to create a kind of permanent monumental sculptures all around. And this is a typical expectation of politicians and funders who wanted to see this large steelless metal sculpture hanging around in the square with a few fancy cafes around, or that's a typical image of public sculpture today. And others might also think about kind of 19th century monument with a few national heroes standing there, right? And that kind of thing is over. I think our time is totally another thing, and we need to inject a new understanding of publicness by means of introducing a new understanding of democracy, of community relationship, and especially in its physical term, it has to be something flexible, open, continues to evolve, to change, and possible to disappear as well when it becomes less relevant. So in that context, I decided to invited some artists to come to map out some positions in the city where one can actually rediscover the physical form of the city from a completely unexpected angle. Because the city of Luxembourg is built surrounding a long valley, and there's on the one hand, you have the castle, the palace built surrounding the castle. You have all the city center, and on the other hand, you have another newer town, which is like a new business district. In between, you have this valley, which is kind of a nice residential area for rich people. Luckily, they don't have earthquakes, so the house is still around. But outside of this, you have really very cool suburban areas, and people don't get to go to the center. So I decided to actually work with artists to identify different positions. Basically it's kind of borderline situations in which the artwork can intervene in this place to create a meeting possibility for people to meet. In the meantime, to go up and to see the city from an unusual position. That means views that is not printed on postcards. So the first action we did was actually to have a Swedish artist, Carl von Hauswolf, coming to work in the railway station. The railway station, it's the place where it connects, as I said, the people who come and go every day from different neighboring countries to work in this place. So it's extremely important as almost like the vein of the life of the city. So in the meantime, it's also a place where I guess all the railway stations are considered as a dangerous place, where you have, of course, unidentified strangers, you have prostitution, you have poor people, you have all kind of drug dealers, or you have homeless people and so on. So this is a place where rich people will come, they have to go there, but in the meantime they have to run away as soon as possible. So that's the activity every day. So I decided to work with a few artists to take over this place. I don't think I have all the images of all the projects, but I just give you one example. This is Carl Michael von Hauswolf's project. His gesture was very, very simple. It's to light up the workshop behind the railway station with red lighting. And this is extremely difficult to realize because the red color is a taboo for the train transportation. Basically, you cannot put the red lights next to the railway, otherwise all the train will stop. So it took us 6 months to negotiate and find all kind of explanation. At the end, we managed to every night to light up the station in red, and the train. Basically, the drivers getting used to it, so it was really interesting. Only the people who sometimes ask questions, and this questioning is extremely interesting. And another project is by a group of architects called Périphérique from Paris, and they created this tower in the park, which is high up in a little hill. Well, people usually don't go there. Only drug people would sometimes spend a secret evening there, have fun. So basically, we created this little tower so people can come and rediscover a beautiful landscape that they would never see if they don't go. So it's a very simple structure of a tower that you can go up. And slightly embarrassing it happens in summer, so it's really for young girls it's a little bit inconvenient to go up and down because it's basically transparent. So that was an interesting architecture kind of positioning. In the meantime, this structure remains there, actually gives us really an interesting understanding of the function of a temporary construction, what we can do, and there's a lot of debate about that. And then the next one is Olaf Nicolai from Germany. He created this project called Siban. Actually, it's 2 playfields of pétanque. I just saw here the gap fillers, they also created a very nice garden with the back town. And I think and Bangkok is, I think the reason why this game existed is very clear, that it's a working class game. Usually, I mean, in France, at least in Europe, there's this image of working class people playing on Sundays or late afternoon or after hard work in the south of France, or some retired people who have nothing to do. So basically, there's a very interesting kind of class connotation behind this game. So Nikolai decided to propose to build two structures in the neighborhood where you have maybe one of the most high-end residential housings at the entrance of a high school, where people would never go to play this kind of game. And then he would actually organize different teams to have a competition during the 6 months of duration of this work. So every week there are a few competitions being organized. So they would bring people from the working class neighborhoods to here. So basically there's some strange confrontation between the audience and the players. And at the end, some of the people living there would also join the game. So that's a very interesting kind of interaction happening. Again, it's never comfortable, it's never easy. I think this interaction is much more interesting. And then Didier Faustino, another architect, proposed this project, which has a very simple name, as I mentioned, Temporary Autonomous Zone. Basically, he's inspired by the book Fight Club. So he wanted to create a fight club that people can come and join and fight, join each other and fight and have fun. And this fight club is mobile, and it goes. It was transported by a truck from one place to another, surrounding different sites in the city. This is the most nice, let's say the most comfortable sites in the park, but it sometimes goes to a neighborhood of more multicultural, working class, and so on. So every time when people encounter, there's something strange happening. So it's extremely challenging. And then this is another piece by Hou Hanru, who's a Chinese artist. I guess everyone knows what this bag means. And this a bag for poor people, immigration workers, and when they go home for New Year holidays, they might bring whatever they can buy in Paris or in London and go back to their little village and give to friends, etc. And so this is also, this work was actually originally created in China for another event. And the original use was actually, because China for the last 20 years, urbanization brings in a huge migrant worker class into different cities. And those migrant workers are the people who build buildings for the rich people, for the people living in the city, but they don't have any right to the city. They don't have even right or the means to go to a basic entertainment like karaoke. So, so Hou Hanru decided for if I have time, I might talk about this project later. The Guangzhou Triangle that actually I directed in 2005. He created a huge bag that is in front of the museum, the art gallery, in which, when you go in, it's a karaoke. So basically, it was open 24 hours a day during 3 months of the triennial. So the migrant worker can come and play for free. And we offer them all equipment, drinks, and so on. So that was the project. And now this time he decided to bring this to the center of Luxembourg to see how the European middle class would live with this thing. And this is situated at the entrance of the most important steel company. What's his name? The the biggest steel producer in Luxembourg. Bought by this Indian guy. Sorry. But anyway, you see, this is the typical sculpture next to the corporation building. Usually, the corporation they always have this nice idea to have a public sculpture in front of the building. So they do have a kind of Bernay spiral form. They do have one there, very expensive. But this one is very cheap, but it's situated just next to it. So you can see interesting contradiction. So, so you have these people coming to play and have fun and so on. And then, as I said, public art is no longer about having a permanent kind of a nice sculpture, but it's much more about creating a platform or various kind of spatial structures in which people can meet and to use them in an exceptional, extraordinary way, do things that they don't do every day. Therefore, they can create the kind of social relationship they would not expect to create. So this is a Korean artist, Yongdu Jun, who actually created this piece called Delta of Venice. During our research, what is interesting is we find out in Luxembourg there's a Latin dance festival organized by the Latin community, the Latino community, from Mexico, from Colombia, from other Latin American countries, and these people organize their festival, but only into themselves in their little area. And then we decided to invite them to extend this festival in the very center of the city. Well, you have this really nice castles and very beautiful place. So Yongdu decided to create a platform for this festival. It's in the form of a triangle, a kind of delta form, and its surface is entirely made of mirror. So when you come to dance here, you have to be careful. So it's slightly erotic, but in the meantime, it's extremely funny. So this is the opening when the festival started. So during the whole summer, people come and use this for their festivals. And then Surasi Kusawon from Thailand did once more his €1 market. And Surasi is an artist who have been working a lot on, in the same vein as we create Tirvanija and a few other Thai artists. They have a really particular understanding of the relationship between art and public life. In his work, he always involved a lot of everyday life situations such as night market or massage salon or oxygen bar, all those things that you see in Thailand, very popular. And to ship them, display them to a Western context. And this time in Luxembourg, Luxembourg used to be a little bit, maybe I would not say similar to New Zealand, but there's certain kind of, like in many European countries, there's certain kind of tradition of community kind of cooperation, a little bit social democratic, let's say. So, and this is the last corporate supermarket that is still existing in this. And there was a very strong working union tradition that has been somehow disappeared. But this is really the last one. And Surasi decided to actually work with this shop, created a €1 market. Basically, you can see he's imported thousands of these useless plastic objects, from baskets to balloons and all those things, super kitsch stuff from Thailand, and imported them to Europe and install a market. And people can come here and spend the day, like a Sunday market, spend only €1 to buy anything they want. So it was a really funny game, and people end up buying hundreds of them, bring them home because they all look so exotic and rare. And you can see the beautiful installation. And so this runs for during the 3 months. I think this project actually was lasting for more than 6 months. And so we have different phases. This phase for the market was about 3 months. So every 2 weeks, every week we have one Sunday market. And then, as I said, apart from having this, we have other projects. For example, there's a restaurant, I don't have the image here, by the Cuban artist Carlos Dalacoy, who actually created a menu of multinational meals. So basically he would invite every week a cook from somewhere else to come to cook a meal for the restaurant. The restaurant is actually inside the working union building, so it's like basically an international meal for the working class, and they will feature the theme of the country as well. And that was another project. This time we have the Urban Lab, which is, as I said, doing an action of public art in a context like this is not simply about creating a kind of once for all kind of events or structures, but also we would like to create a temporary kind of institution that can help people to rethink their reality and to project certain ideas for the future of this place. So to do that, I propose to create this urban lab, which is taking over a warehouse, which is maybe 5 times bigger than this one, in which we invited 4 major international architectural practices, Hou Hanru, OMA, AFO, and Hou Hanru from Beijing, Atelier Bauer from Japan, Multiplicity from Milano, to lead workshops with students and teachers from 5 major European universities, who are design university, architecture, fine art, also cultural management. So we have 2 schools from France and 1 school from Turkey, from Istanbul, 1 school from Milan, and Bauhaus. We all know Bauhaus from Germany. So every school would actually send for each workshop that lasts for a month, 5 students to come. So you have 25 students mingle together. They speak different languages, they come from different backgrounds, and then every school provides 1 professor to accompany the group. And then the architectural practice will send their architects coming to the workshop, research, with the students together. So this lasts for the whole year, basically. So the outcome is you have all the lectures, and then they do interventions into the city. For example, they would work with the local community, the kids, to create spaces for hip hop, for urban dance, and also there's a guy proposed to create a chain shop for Hamburg shop, which is called Luxembourg. So he created a kind of McDonald's in the European style. And then at the end, there's some exhibitions that actually happen in the workshop. So basically, using this excuse of creating a public art project, we try to take over the city and really create a temporary institution that can continue to generate ideas for the place. So that's one example. I don't know how much time we will have. Jenny, okay, very quickly, this is the thing I talked about yesterday in Lake Wellington. It's the 10th Istanbul Biennial. Again, this is a biennial actually conceived also as a multi-layer kind of project for the city. of Istanbul. Istanbul Biennial has been there for 20 years before I had the chance to curate it. And it's already become one of the really most important biennials in the world that actually brings us to a discussion on the cultural biennial, how the cultural biennial became a new condition for artistic production. Make it very briefly, I had 2 years to work on this project, and I spent more than 6 months to do research on the city and find out really Istanbul is such a complicated, complex city which has an immense territory which is 150 kilometers long, and also have an even more immense population which is 25 million or something. So for the last 50 years, Istanbul has grown from a smaller city, small-sized capital city like 1 million people to now 25 million. Its territory has been expanded in a way that nobody could imagine. So in the meantime, this is also a perfect place to talk about how different historical and cultural conditions has generated different visions of different ideas of modernization, different models of modernization, and also different understanding of modernity itself. So there's a whole discussion about multiple modernities that, and today, especially when we talk about globalization, again, it's not about one kind of modernization project being spread out, but really it's about a continuous kind of process of hybriding all this different possibilities. Istanbul, it's really the perfect place to look into this. And then in the meantime, its own geopolitical history is extremely interesting. And Istanbul was actually, Turkey is actually one of the first modern nation states or republic, secular republic, created outside of Europe. It was founded at the end of the Ottoman Empire. Was founded in 1924 by Atatürk and his, young descendants of the Young Turk movement, to claim actually in the context of a multicultural empire and dominated by Islam, to create a nation, a modern nation, which is based on the French Revolution kind of model, a republic, a state without religion, and a state actually trying to become a kind of social, democratic structure. In the meantime, over time, it has gone through a very complicated kind of transformations. And in the late 90s, this project of Turkish Republic actually has also to negotiate with the possibility of integration into Europe. And also, in the meantime, there's a war happening in Middle East, and Turkey as the central part of that has a very particular kind of position to play. So all this together gives us a really necessity to rethink the meaning of the biennial in this context. So in the time of 2007, what does that mean? So I come up with a very complicated title. It's called Not Only Possible But Also Necessary: Optimism in the Age of Global War. Basically, it's a complex and contradictory description of a condition, of a situation in which Turkish artists have to negotiate, people living there have to negotiate, and also international artists coming to here also have to be a part of that discussion. And again, there's a kind of a trick for talking, how to talk about this complicated project in terms of communication. So the idea to come up with a long title and very complicated press release description and the complicated structure of the biennial is actually to challenge the logic of consumerism in the mass media today. So, so basically, it's too complicated the task of people who wanted to read the biennial, wanted to translate it into newspaper reviews and things like that. It's really to make them take this seriously, to be a part of the engagement rather than simply consuming them as one image or one title. And then after the kind of long-term 6-month research of the city, I came up with a project which has 6 sub-exhibitions under basically 6 aspects of a topic that we mentioned: political, economical, social, group, the question of urbanization and globalization, and community life, public space, and so on. And every project is conceived surrounding a particular building. And those buildings are, in general, being selected among the most important modernist building. When we talk about Istanbul, people have this idea of Hou Hanru talking about this utopian, bourgeois ideal space with this very nice, exotic buildings, from Ottoman mosque to whatever Byzantine kind of caves and things like that. And many previous editions of the biennial also use those sites to basically attract tourist kind of public. So for me, it's time to change this logic. So I decided to actually select the few buildings which is politically important, economically important, to really, those are the buildings marked some key moments in the transition of the city in the modern time. So this is the Atatürk Cultural Center, which has a particular history, and it's actually gone through some disaster. It was burned down when it was built, and it was rebuilt, and of course it was built into the image of a kind of socialist state. It's a very typical kind of public building, public culture building for a socialist country. And this kind of building, together with the social project, the political project, was really in crisis for the last 20 years. We have seen, replacement of this gentrification of those kind of institutions by privatization, by the fact that the public authorities are leaving the spaces to the private sector and so on. And this happened in Berlin, in Moscow, in many places. So this building, when we found it, we also found out that the Turkish government also had the idea to take it down and transform and give it to a developer to transform that into a kind of Disney-like shopping mall with a cultural facility. Right? So this is really typical. So we decided to, whatever happens, we negotiate to get this building as a site of our I don't think I have time to talk about the details of our biennial. This section is really focused on the question of the political utopia and its fate. So we invited artists to come with site-specific installations to intervene in this building to really remind people of this question. And in the meantime, we found out, because of the intervention of the biennial, the intellectual community start to understand, notice there's such a threat to the building itself. So they mobilize themselves and then take the government to the court. Basically, they won the case, and now it's in the Supreme Court for the the second round of negotiations. So the building is still around, it's still up there. It will take them another, I don't know, 20 years to negotiate, hopefully. So it goes on. And then another part is really about economy, kind of modernization. And we chose also a building which is in the history of the Turkish kind of modernization, in Istanbul's urbanization, played an important role, which is a site made in the 50s by Turkish young architects to build it for the textile market. We know the textile industry has played a very key role in Turkish economic growth. That also is a key element to bring workers into the city. And this is why the Istanbul city has been expanded to such a degree because of the migration workers. And this, over time, this building has become, and this building was actually built upon a very interesting, very intelligent idea, upon a kind of modernist design, but based on the floor plan of the Istanbul Bazaar. So it's a perfect combination, in a way, modernism and the historical continuation of the economic model. So that thing actually brings us to look into the possibility to use this site to talk about economic issues. So I created a project called Work Factory, in which actually it's a long story to tell, but make it very briefly. We invited artists to intervene into the shop spaces. We rent about 20 shops in which we installed exhibition in it. And the reason why this project is called Work Factory is because we have seen that over time there have been many countries like Turkey, China, Mexico, or this country is situated in a kind of borderline situation, and their economic development model is very much about turning themselves into factories to produce products or commodities for the developed world. So they turn themselves into a kind of factory for the world. This is how they grow. And of course, the price to pay is a lot of other things we can discuss about the social division, kind of pollution, excessive urbanization, and so on. All these questions have been brought by the artists into this exhibition, very often with extremely interesting, ironic, kind of critical kind of interventions. And then the next part, it happens in the Anthropole. It's kind of a warehouse on the harbor. Basically, in this part, I tried to reproduce the intense city life. That is Istanbul. Actually, I think Istanbul perhaps is the most cosmopolitan city in the world. That really, not only people don't sleep, and also they do extremely interesting activities in the city space. So you have, in the meantime, commercial campaigns and political protests. You have all kinds of things happening. And of course, this is a place where ideally it's perfect for exploring the question of geopolitical kind of struggle. So we have artists who come with this extremely interesting and attractive projects. Also, we deal with the question of gentrification, and this is a project by a Malaysian artist, Wong Hoi Cheong, who actually worked with the local community living in this area for already 2,000 years. They're the Turkish Rom, the Rom population, and they're going to be excluded because of the urban development. So, so we created a work together as a kind of resistance. And then we also have projects that deal with the urban future of the world. So again, Hou Hanru and AMO did this project of the Gulf, South Face, IMBCT on Second Life. We try to also really include the most up-to-date kind of technology into that. And then, since I said Istanbul is a place that people don't sleep, so when they don't sleep, we need to provide something to do apart from, having coffee and drinks on the street. We also wanted them to live with the artwork in the biennial. So we created a second floor in the warehouse, which is called Dream House. Basically, you can come and sleep here during the night. Then you can have a beautiful view. Oh, this is, by the way, a very nice cruise boat parked just next to the warehouse. You can have a beautiful view of the Bosphorus, and then you can stay there living with several installations. One of them is a huge bed. You can lie down there and watch videos. And there's a storyteller coming every night to tell stories. It's really beautiful. And then another project that I wanted to do, actually, it's something that reminded me, in 2004, I was director of the New Blanche in Paris. One of the projects I did was called Image Daizibao. Basically, the idea is to explore the question of what public art means today and how much we can go democratic by creating an event like this. So I find out actually during the Cultural Revolution in China, there's some Daizibao, which is a form of critique, popular critique against the party bureaucracy by writing text on large papers, usually using newspaper, and people write in ink with big characters. Daizibao meaning poster with big characters. And this word has been adopted a lot by the French during the Cultural Revolution, 68 and so on. And this form this word became very familiar for that generation of French artists and intellectuals. So, and in the meantime, I also think, what is the most popular form of Daizibao today? How do we express our critique? It's video. Basically, everyone can have a tiny video camera and shoot a video work. So I sent out an open call and asking people to contribute their videos, which the only condition is they should be shorter than 3 minutes. So I received, I think, 6,000. And during 6 months, I was watching them every day and selected 150 and set up a long wall like this in the public space between the university and the street. The 20 screens running through to project them overnight. People got extremely excited, especially those people who find their own work out there. So this time in Istanbul, I wanted to repeat the same exercise, but without me. So I invited 5 local curators to curate a project like this. Of course, we don't have this long, 200-meter long projection, but we actually hired a van carrying a projector, going to more than 100 sites during the biennial every night, bringing them to different communities. So you can see different sites actually were being projected. The whole exercise is a very interesting kind of dialogue process with communities that usually don't have access to art, to culture. They live very far away from the city center and so on. So that was, this is the original format that's about. So I think it's great that if, the university here is full of this kind of papers, criticizing why we still haven't rebuilt the city, right? And then there are a few other projects that, in the form of more kind of public art formats, let's say. And this is Atelier Bao. They come up with a very simple gesture, making this furniture with one piece of board and one stick, and to transform a piece of land which is totally abandoned into a viewing place to look at the beautiful landscape. And in the meantime, people get together and share their moments. So I guess, it's a little bit late. I will stop here.
Anybody have any questions?
Could you class this as relational aesthetics?
Excuse me?
Could you class these types of works as relational aesthetics?
I didn't get it.
Relational aesthetic.
Relational aesthetic. Well, you might call it, but I think I would call it more relational. I'm not very interested in the word aesthetics in the sense that because the thing is, of course, Nicolas Bourriot wrote about this thing as becoming really a kind of brand. Well, of course, there's some connection, right? I think we belong to the same generation of curator and critic and artist to really think about the role of art production in the public, in the formation of a new public sphere, and this for sure. On the other hand, I also think, Nicolas' book is more about the game of the art world, within the art world, very much coming from a lineage, which is, I guess, starting from kind of modernist, European modernist to the art world today. So it's more about how to transform the social relationship into certain kind of forms, certain kind of thing that you can still describe with a vocabulary referring to this particular discourses. Of course, Bourriot also talked about the so-called alter modernity, and this I found it totally coming too late, because this discussion has been existing for a long time in post-colonial studies, in really much more engaging, political engaging kind of discourses. So that's I found it a little bit naive to introduce that into the art world today, when the art world is already out there. Meaning, there are many artists who are operating in a very, very different terrain already. So I don't know what to say, but yeah, I mean, of course there is something really in common, but I think we operate in a very different kind of space.
Anything else burning on anyone's mind? I was really happy to see those images in Istanbul, because I was lucky enough to go there for the first time last year. It's pretty, as you say, a pretty amazing, diverse and city that never sleeps. Any other questions? Well, let's thank Hou Hanru very much for his presentation, and we can talk more informally over a glass of wine and some food shortly. Thank you very much.